Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm bringing you Game 3 against Jonathan Ezrael Evans. Last week I brought you both Game 1 and Game 2 against him in our best of 3 series, and it was really tight. This was in the top 4 of a local tournament in Brooklyn, New York, before the season actually technically started, but it's kind of a casual, final VGC 2014 tournament right after Worlds, and it was definitely a really close set with Jonathan. Game 1 I decided to go with my Got-to-Tell Mawile strategy, but I ended up losing that game, so I opted to switch to Kangaskhan for the next 2 games, which is why you see Kangaskhan here once again, not bringing Mawile or Got-to-Tell. Jonathan this time adjusts pretty smartly. He predicted that I probably would not bring my own Got-to-Tell, so he opted not to bring Scizor, which gave me a lot of trouble in the earlier games, instead bringing his own Got-to-Tell. So without further ado, let's just get into the battle. Now, the Got-to-Tell mirror is really annoying to play, even if you don't bring your own Got-to-Tell. An opposing Got-to-Tell is really annoying to deal with. So my strategy here is, if I do see his Got-to-Tell, I'm just going to try to knock it out as quickly as possible. I lead with Hariyama and Kangaskhan since I feel like it's my safest lead, as he goes with Ludicolo and his own Got-to-Tell. So like I said, my strategy here is just to knock out that Got-to-Tell as quickly as possible so I can start switching around. But he makes an excellent play on the first turn, switching Ludicolo into Salamence, immediately getting the Intimidate off. And of course, there's not much I can do about the Intimidate because I can't switch. One of the reasons why Kangaskhan carries Power Up Punch is to, of course, negate those Intimidates. So that is convenient and will come into play later on. On the first turn, I decided to just Fake Out and Double Edge the Goth. I was expecting Ludicolo to actually stay in and Fake Out the Hariyama, but I knew I'd basically be able to get a free turn, either worth of damage or, yeah. And that ends up playing out pretty well. Even with the Intimidate, Double Edge does a relatively good amount to the Got-to-Tell, but it has the Citrus Berry, so unfortunately I only do around 30% of damage while I take some recoil damage myself. And of course, both of my Pokemon are now intimidated, so that was a pretty good turn 1 for Jonathan, despite the fact he didn't actually get anything really done other than the Intimidate off. Then this following turn, he goes for the Protect with this Got-to-Tell, and because he's not running Chesto Rest, that's the set I like to run, I'm anticipating that he probably actually carries that Protect, and I know that he knows that he needs to conserve the Goth. So I make a smart play here by Power Up punching the Salamence and going for the knockoff, just to get myself to a +1 and to knock off the Choice Scarf that he has. It actually probably would have been a better idea just to not knock it off, but I didn't want to take a defense drop from close combat. I could not really afford that, and knockoff does a relatively good amount. So now I've got a Kangaskhan at +1, and this following turn I'm actually anticipating the Got-to-Tell attacking my Hariyama with a Psychic type attack, so I decide to Sucker Punch it, because I'm not sure whether my Kangaskhan can take a Draco Meteor. In retrospect, it probably would have been smarter to just Sucker Punch the Salamence instead of the Got-to-Tell, but fortunately enough, he did actually end up attacking with the Goth. I knew that definitely caught him off guard, so I was pretty happy to see it pay off, and Kangaskhan, as you see there, is not able to survive the Draco Meteor. But I did knock out the Got-to-Tell, which was a huge relief for me since I was really scared of that, and I get another knockoff there, obviously not going to do too much now that Hariyama is intimidated. So the game's now tied at 3-3, but he brings in Ludicolo, which I'm not too pleased to see, mainly because I have Rotom Heat and Salamence in the back, so I know if I want to beat these Ludicolo, I actually have to conserve my Hariyama. He goes for the Fake Out and the Draco onto the Hari, not predicting the Rotom Heat basically to protect. However, I actually did not protect in anticipation of that. I was trying to get as much damage off as possible, trying to knock out the Salamence basically. Because he actually stayed in rather than switch out, now the Salamence is at a hefty -6. So this next turn, I know that if I want to win the game at all, I have to conserve Hariyama, because otherwise I've got no way to actually effectively knock out the Ludicolo, so I switch out my Hariyama into Salamence. I also know if he has Mega Tyranitar in the back, Hariyama beats that one-on-one. He goes for the Draco Meteor onto a Hariyama slot, which will connect with my own Salamence. Super effective, but at -6, Salamence actually takes that really well. Rotom goes for another Thunderbolt, knocking out that Salamence. So this entire time, I'm kind of surprised like he did not switch into his back Pokemon, but seeing later how it reveals itself to be a Tyranitar, it makes sense because Jonathan probably did not want to say switch into a predicted close combat. So he's making the safe play, and he actually gets a lot of damage off against my Salamence, especially as the Scald gets the burn. But I'm really happy to see Tyranitar as his last Pokemon, because now Hariyama can actually clean the game up pretty well, as long as he doesn't flinch me or anything. But, anything can really happen, and the game's still not over by far. So he Mega Evolves, and this is still a pretty scary position because he can actually effectively get a Dragon Dance up this turn, but he decides to Protect, which I was kind of confused about. But by all means, I was not going to question that. My Salamence went for the Draco Meteor because I know that I can just one-hit KO the Tyranitar with a close combat from Hariyama in the back. Did not want to switch out because I did not want my Hariyama taking any unnecessary damage. So I Draco, Will-O-Wisp does go into Love Protect, and he goes for the Scald smartly onto the Rotom Heat slot, does around over 50%, and brings me down to 71 HP. So Salamence is going to take burn damage and sand damage, Ludicolo as well. Rotom Heat, of course, since safety goggles isn't, but like I said, the game's still not over, especially when Mega Tyranitar can go for Dragon Dances and Rock Slides. So here I know I need to conserve the Rotom Heat. I go for another Draco onto the Ludi Slide, just trying to, chunk it off as much as possible. You see the first one actually did a decent amount, even though he's Assault Vest, 2 Specs Dracos does a pretty solid amount. He does not go for the Dragon Dance, which kind of caught me off guard, probably just trying to pick up the KO on Rotom, but I think it would have made a bit more sense to D-Dance at least once in the last 2 turns. But once again, I will not complain at all. He goes for the Giga Drain actually, probably predicting the Hariyama switch in. So Ludi is basically going to faint after one more turn of Sand, and I bring Hariyama, and Hariyama, as long as it does not flinch from a close combat here, should be able to seal up the deal. Tyranitar smartly protects here, trying to prevent any fake outs or close combats, but Rotom is actually faster than the Ludicolo, so I knock out the Ludicolo with a Thunderbolt, and now it's a 2-on-1, so once again, now I just have to avoid the Rock Slide flinches, and we'll see whether I'll be able to do that or not. It's actually a pretty scary position because he was going to be able to knock out my Rotom Heat, but I do protect here to obviously increase the spread damage or decrease his damage output onto Hariyama, because I know he's got to go for Rock Slides at this point if he wants any chance of winning. But Rock Slide does not do a very good amount there. However, he does get the flinch, and the Sandstorm damage knocks me under 50%. But, of course, as you guys all notice, Hariyama does carry a Citrus Berry, so he's still got a good amount to go. I go for the double protect here, just obviously because Rotom is not going to do very much. It makes more sense to just double protect, trying to prevent Rock Slide's damage output. Don't get it, he knocks out the Rotom Heat, and now it's a 1-on-1, and it's kind of getting scary, but Hariyama does get the close combat off to KO Tyranitar and take the series 2-1 in a really tight battle, honestly. I got pretty fortunate basically in the first couple of turns. Knocking out Gothitelle was really huge. I was also lucky that Tyranitar was his last Pokemon, and I played smartly with Hariyama. Jonathan, played the game really well too. He saw that if he could KO if he could KO my Hariyama, he would be able to win the game. So I was able to conserve it towards the end, and it ended up paying off. But that was a super close battle. Thanks to Jonathan for the games, of course. If you guys enjoyed that battle, of course, leave a like. And yeah, that's it for today's battle, guys. I'll see you next time. Peace.